here's the harsh reality. Oh, crap, I've got stuff on the screen. So here's a harsh reality. I've made a whole crap load of YouTube videos before. I'm talking like hundreds and hundreds.
Funny you should ask.
That's But this has honestly like been the hardest freaking video for me to do. Like I've tried, I don't know how many times. This is the show. Okay. So I realized that it's so frustrating to me that I can't get one out, but I don't know, I have a clearer vision that there's something missing that we're all searching for, and that talking about it on its head, this idea of connecting with a higher power in a meaningful way, for some is maybe a stupid idea. Why would you do that? Who's gonna watch that show? No one's ever gonna like that. It's not gonna work. Frankly, I tell myself that. There's a lot of fear that goes into new ideas. Maybe that's really why I'm reaching out to Richie, is because I want someone to calm down my own fear. That this show isn't gonna work, this concept isn't gonna work, that the things that mean the most to me don't mean anything to anyone else and therefore aren't of value. But that's a stupid idea in general. I wanted to talk to Richie because I knew that he would have new perspective on spirituality, and a new perspective that I think is needed in this space that I need, that we all need. And so with that, I hit him up.
So like when I was in that punk rock band.
What was the name of it?
It's called Best Buy. This is before I knew there was gonna be a store called Best Buy.
No.
It's almost impossible to separate who you are and what you're doing and what you believe. But I think in like the most part of your life, like melding together spirituality, whatever happens in the mind with what you're doing physically, what you're creating in the world, they're one and the same.
Yeah.
So my brother not passing away, my son passing away,
yeah.
My wife having a stroke and losing her memory,
yeah.
It came back later. My son getting hit by a car and almost dying. Like I can go on and on. At one point I realized, I was like, does God hate me? But then I thought, I could either blame daddy in the sky, mama in the sky, parents in the sky, you know, I could either blame, like a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden what I believe, how I think, whether I'm optimistic or not, is completely reliant on what happens on the outside, things that are uncontrollable and unexpected. And if I have a choice, which I do, I might as well choose something that will make me think about it in a way that can make me a better person. I'm not saying it was a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not saying whether you should feel happy or sad. I'm literally saying, how can you become more human because of it in a good way? This helps me be more optimistic. People use the word anchor in such a weird way because they think that it grounds them. They're totally wrong. An anchor is meant to come up so you can take the ship wherever you want and then put it down where you want to stay temporarily and then bring it up. This is how that whole faith and work things works.
Okay.
Because you're not anchored this forever. You get to live and do the thing and be inspired and let the winds blow you, and you get to control your destiny. This is an important analogy because most people, not only do they not have an anchor, they don't remember that they can pull it up. And I'm not talking about like switching and changing your whole life. I'm talking about your ability to choose and to change based on new inputs. There was a guy, I saw this, I witnessed this. There was a boat wreck, and I was one of the first, if not the first, on the scene.
Yeah, out in the ocean here.
Mm-hmm. It crashed on the reef, and this stuff was everywhere. You know, we call 911, whatever. Dude, they had jet skis, they had the boat guy out there, they had a helicopter, they had the people swimming, they had all the things.
Yeah.
They didn't have an anchor. That was what happened.
Oh, to the boat.
They were out in the water, fishing or doing whatever they were doing, and when the swell started to come up, and when the water started to move around, and when it started pushing them in, they had no way to settle down. That to me is what spirituality is.
So I haven't thought of my spirituality being an anchor in my life, but this analogy makes a lot of sense, especially this fresh take on moving an anchor and why. That with new input, new ideas, or in my case, inspiration, that I should move my anchor to where I'm inspired to go. And that in a relationship with God, our higher power, that's really, I think, what a lot of us are striving and searching for is, how do I actually tap into this? How do I have a stronger or more pure connection in my life that adds meaning, purpose, insights, and direction that I can act on every day and not just once in a while? And that's something I can do. That's something I can work with.
I was in Nashville for some meetings, and I got the text saying that there is a ballistic missile, it's gonna strike Hawaii, and then it said this is not a test, something like that. And I remember I called my family, I called each one, and no one answered. And I kept calling and calling and calling, no one's answering. And then I remember finally Cardin, I think he was 13 at the time, he answered, and he'll be embarrassed I said this, but he was sobbing. Because fully, everyone at the time that I'm aware of was preparing to die. And he said his goodbyes. He's like, I love you, Dad. In a matter of moments, possibly, my entire family will be wiped out. I don't know. It's hard to say all the thoughts and feelings that are happening in a moment when some robot tells you that your whole family's about to die, you know? What am I supposed to say?
Yeah.
But when it turned out not to be true, I think it's also all the feelings, you know, like, oh my, nice joke here, you know, even though it wasn't a joke, it was an accident, but it was just like, are any of us actually living in a way that we would most want to be living?
Yeah.
You know, and you don't really get those real thoughts. They're always hypothetical. This was a real thought. Tell me I'm special,
You
bro.
are special,
Like, well,
bro.
come on.
You are special. But like how you deal with like making sure that uncertainty doesn't turn into fear.
Oh man. What has stopped most people from doing something is because they weren't certain that it would work out.
Yeah.
That is a prison. You're literally not doing something because you're uncertain that it will work out. But if you embrace uncertainty, it is certain that something new and different, possibly better, will happen. Think about it logically. It is illogical to like be stuck on certainty. If you want to do something new, different, better, self-improved, developed.
So let me ask you, I think I already know the answer to this.
Because
Okay.
even the most certain things nowadays are the most risky. Oh, I was sure I'd have that job for the rest of my life. Just got fired. Oh, I was sure that my kids are gonna turn out some certain way. Control, you know? And you're like, nope, didn't turn out that way. Safety is possibly one of the riskiest words you can use. Your brain works like a calculator. So you'll say, I can't do this, and your brain will say, okay. But if you ask your brain an algebraic question, how can I do this thing without this bad thing happening by Tuesday? It creates space.
Funny, yes. I know exactly what you mean, that if I have a problem and I already know that there's a solution or believe there's a solution, my brain will find it.
It doesn't mean, that's right. It doesn't mean you have the answer or know the answer, but like the fact that you are willing to ask an algebraic question and let your brain burn a little bit, literally, I keep using the word literally, even though it's probably figuratively, it opens up, I picture it like a pie opening up. I picture like, this is the spot where an answer is gonna come. That's how I picture it in my brain that way. I literally picture it that way.
What kind of pie?
Pumpkin. With whipped cream. But if you're unwilling, not you, the collective you, if you're unwilling to ask an algebraic question, you're also unwilling to find an answer and unwilling to try. Because you already know the answer. And then the answer is no.
Do you know what I mean?
No.
Yeah.
Even though it's untrue. So when people go, how can I be if they are focused on being more spiritual, or if they're realizing that spirituality is weaved into their whole life and everything they do, no matter what, whether they're willing to express it or not, whatever it is, if you start, like we talked about earlier, being like conscious and not conditioned, if you can be aware and not just told, or rather sold, you can figure something out. And it might not look like what you want, but at least you're gonna break the mold. And even if it fails, you're gonna be happy you tried. Because you know what, this is so crazy, but the biggest regrets I found as I've interviewed hundreds of people in retirement, the biggest regret is so weird. Yeah, it's like I didn't try. They always say that. The other one is, when they finally got there, they didn't want to do it anymore. It is better to find out that the thing you wanted to do sucks today than to work for it for 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 years. It is way better to learn this thing sucks right now than to use it as hope. It's a hollow hope. Sure, it strings you along, but that's all it's worth, is just string. You know what I mean? I don't know. I might be getting crazy on this.
No.
But if you think about your own life personally, like you or anyone watching, listening to this, or anyone trying to do something new, and you go, yeah, I thought everything was cool until 2020. I thought everything was cool until 2008. I thought everything was cool until, I don't know. Right? And then you go backwards and you go, wow. And then you look forwards and you go, I don't know. So the better question is, if I don't have certainty, then what? That opens up possibilities. This requires faith. This requires works. If you tell yourself I'm not gonna do it because it's stupid, you just destroyed the seed. You destroyed the possibility for this thing to grow into something else. That's not fair. That's not fair to anyone.
So then what role for you, like, again, faith so often I feel like is associated with a religious practice or idea. How do you associate faith in like a daily practice then?
Well, I mean, you could say faith from a religious standpoint, but when I use faith in this sense, I mean having some courage and courageously leading your life in a direction you want it to go with the possibility of total failure. What's scarier, doing the thing and failing, or living with the idea that you didn't ever even try?
You know, this really makes me think about what I'm even trying to do with this show. And in talking with Richie and hearing these ideas, I realize, yeah, it's gonna be hard. It should be hard, and that's okay. All I need to do is keep pushing forward and finding the right way of doing what I want to do. It'll come. At least that's what I'm hoping for.
So honestly, the part of the core of what this whole project is for me is understanding myself better and how to be better at like outward facing spirituality and how to like interact with others around it, because that is core to in some respects who I am. So like how do you actually go about living that in your own life?
Spirituality is inevitably and forever intertwined in every part of our lives. Whatever you believe, you will approach the world through those eyes. And in that sense, you're living the dream every single day of your life.
Dude. That's it. Dude, I love it.
You're getting inside my head all of a sudden, so dude. I'm sorry to just spit it out like that.